All right, we are here. Welcome to A Valid Answer with Scott and Marshall. I am the Scott.
I'm the Marshall.
Wait a minute. Does that mean you have legal authority or?
I wish.
No, yeah. I'm the capitalist conservative pastor. This is the socialist liberal atheist. And this is our show, Sunday nights at 5, Mondays at 4 on Kerncast, on Valid Answer, right here on Facebook. Search for us both on there. And just trying to, share our, put this to the page.
I think I'm all set up.
Good,
I'm
good.
I'm getting it down to a sance where I got to do this and this and this.
And that goes there, and then this happens here, and then, yeah.
Get it going on the phone so I can see the comments and so on.
Yeah, we have to have all of this technology around us just to make this happen so that we can see what's going on.
Multiple platforms. And then as early as tomorrow, this is going to get even more complicated.
It could get more complicated.
Because we're going to be doing this remotely, I think, as sort of a test for next week when it will be done remotely for real. Because by next week, I will be living in an entirely different community.
You will not even be living in this city, so who knows what's going to happen
somewhere else
with that. So, yeah, just trying to load these things up so I can put it on my screen. I can see what's going on. Yeah, as you can see from the Scott and Marshall discussed the detention centers / concentration camps at the U.S. southern border.
Oh, you put that on there. Okay.
I did put that on there because that's kind of what's going on, and that's where we're at, and because that's really big in the news right now.
And I don't want to do this.
And
topic.
Big on Facebook.
I don't want to do this topic, but we have to model for others having a difficult conversation.
Yes.
And this is a hot topic for both you and I.
Yeah.
And our rhetoric and our defensiveness, even in our sort of pre-show reviewing notes and going over this. Mm-hmm. You and I got a little testy with each other.
Yes, we did. Just now.
And this is...
And mostly not even about the topic.
Right. Well, different things, different approaches. Yeah. But the reality is, it is the topic. And it's not that we're upset with the language or the tactics that the other side is using so much. We're using that to deflect from what makes us very uncomfortable about the issue. Is my hypothesis.
Okay. No, I don't mind having a controversial view of a topic. I don't mind being the person who looks like the racist, because I know who I am and I know what I am, and I don't care what somebody else thinks of me. I have principles that I'm going to live by, and I've spent my life living by principles that other people make fun of. So I have no problem saying, well, that's fine. You can think what you're going to think. I don't have a problem with having a stance. I don't have a problem with being shown if it's wrong or right. But what I do have a problem with, tactics. I do have problems with dishonest tactics, and I do have a problem with intellectual dishonesty. And I just, you cannot have a rational, reasonable discussion with someone who is not intellectually honest. Now, I've held you to the standard of being intellectually honest, and right now we're just airing some dirty laundry right here, right now. I feel that there's been some things recently that I didn't feel you were being intellectually honest, and I have a problem with that. And for me, that cuts to the core of, can we do what we do if we're not going to always be intellectually honest, even if it makes us look bad? I'm going to do my best to be intellectually honest, even if I look like the loser, even if I look like the person who's like, well, you look like you're evil. That's fine. I don't care if you think I look like I'm evil. I know that I'm not, and I know why I'm doing this, and whether or not you believe that's my intention doesn't make a difference on whether or not I'm going to act that way or do that. Your belief of my intention isn't going to change my belief.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that we continue this intellectual honesty and able to have these open discussions in a way to where, we're not gonna succumb to hyperbole. We're not gonna succumb to things of just name calling and all that kind of stuff. It's just, there's no reason for it. There's no way to have a reasonable discussion if we can't get out of the slog and the swamp of, for me, it's hyperbole. For me, that's the thing. For someone to exaggerate and say this is, and to not give that up.
So you're talking about the use of the term concentration camp
in this particular thing. Yes, the use of the word concentration camp but here's the thing. By the strict definition of the word, you probably can call them concentration camps because you're concentrating a bunch of people into an area where they're staying and they're sleeping. And yeah, that's probably you can't, but you can also technically call it a detainment center, detention center, whatever. There's several different phrases you can use that would accurately, factually define what these places are. And I have to say, even though it hurts my position, I have to be intellectually honest and say, on a technical level, yes, you probably can use the word concentration camp because by the strictest definition of that word, these probably apply. There
are several, people who are literally subject matter experts who are also using that language.
Yeah.
Godwin, who's of Godwin's Law, Professor Godwin, who basically said...
Am I on the wrong page? I can't see the comments you're seeing.
Well, we're shared out to 3 different pages, so you're getting might be getting a different feed.
I'm trying to watch the
so he said, concentration camps, it's appropriate to use the term in this case. He's the one who said once somebody starts calling you a Nazi or making a comparison to Hitler, the argument or the discussion is literally off the rails because you've gone to the point of hyperbole in your comparisons. But he says in this particular case, the use of the term concentration camp seems to be warranted. Mm-hmm. You also have other subject matter experts, including Holocaust survivors, Holocaust remembrance organizations, memorials, museums, and stuff here also using the term. You simply have Jewish people using the term. Yeah. And I think the reason is that when you look at the history of concentration camps in Nazi Germany in particular, and by the way, there are concentration camps all around the world, all throughout history, many still operating today. So this isn't, certainly in places like North Korea. The concern is the slippery slope, that once you have a detention center, you've referred to certain people as outsiders or as others, and therefore that justifies giving them a lower standard of rights and privileges and care and so on than what the in-group receives, citizens versus illegal immigrants. And then once you do that, then other abuses tend to become very easy. You can scapegoat this group. You can then heap upon other abuses. And this is what happened historically. Remember, Auschwitz, the death camp, didn't really open and begin operation until the middle of World War II.
Yeah, it didn't start. That's the whole thing. It's like, this is how it started in Germany. It's like, no, this is not how it started in Germany. This is nowhere near how it started in Germany. It started with the rounding up, the active rounding up of their own citizens and pulling them at gunpoint, forcing them out of their homes. That is not what has happened here.
They stripped them of citizenship.
Right.
It started with that. But it also included outgroups. It included people such as the Roma, gypsies, people who traditionally simply traveled irrespective of national boundaries. They simply followed centuries-old tradition of travel and making their way. Other undesirables in the population, people who are homosexual, people who are political enemies. These are the people who were first into the concentration camps, and then, again, it snowballed from there. So I get that. Now, these centers...
No, they weren't, because the concentration camps, like you said, weren't made until later. They may have been moved to the ghettos.
They were made in the early 30s. They were made in the early 30s, but they didn't house the Jews right away. They housed a lot of political prisoners and other people. Camps like Dachau, for example, had a very early start, like in 33, 34, what have you. And again, they were more detention centers, re-education centers, than they were actual death camps or forced labor camps, although labor was part of it even early on.
But what you say is that the reason they want to use that word, I don't believe that's intellectually honest. The reason they want to use that word is because of the emotion tied and the power tied to that phrase from Germany, from Auschwitz, from what happened to the Jews and the concentration. There's an entire history and an entire emotion tied to that they want to equate to what's happening now and want to falsely equate to what's happening now. And that's the intellectual dishonesty that I'm talking about.
So Michelangelo Lancella has a starting question. He calls me by my little nickname, Marshmallow. Does Marshmallow think that borders should exist? Actually, my straight answer, no. I don't think they should exist. Being, essentially a socialist and, a functional communist, not really. But I really think that borders are an artificial human construct that create artificial barriers to human unity, peace, prosperity, and so on. I don't think they should exist at all.
So you don't have walls in your house? You don't have walls that keep unwanted people out?
I have walls that keep the weather out.
That's called a border. So anybody can come to your house and sleep at your house? Well, anybody can just walk in without your permission?
No.
So you do believe in borders?
I guess I do.
Yes,
I
thank
guess
you very
I do
much.
in my home. But I do.
So you do believe in borders?
But should national borders exist, which are different from the borders inside your home?
But for the same reason.
No, for
the same reason.
No,
yeah,
no. I
for
think,
the exact same reason.
I think a safer world is a world without borders.
So a safer world is where anybody can come live in your house.
No, that's different.
No, it's not. It's not different.
Even the immigrant should have their own private space, that is their own home, where nobody intrudes without permission. I don't have an issue with that. That's a fundamental human need. Mm-hmm. But a nation does not have that need, except to preserve the institutions that make, the rentier class what it is, and the empowered class what they are.
No. Because here's the thing. So if there is a bad government, an evil government, which apparently you think America is, if there is an actual evil government, let's say North Korea, do you want a border to keep North Korea out of your country?
No, because I don't think North Korea is the problem. The people of North Korea are not the problem.
No, but the government.
The regime is.
The regime is. And as long as that regime exists, do you want a border between you and that regime?
No.
You want them to be able to take over and expand their regime into.
No, because if there's no border, then the regime doesn't have power.
No, they do have power. They can continue. They have as much power as they have weapons for. So as long as the bigger one, whatever the bigger one is going to expand. You don't want, if you're a better country, you don't want a wall between you and an evil country. If there is a country that is trying to take over your lifestyle and change your lifestyle, do you not want a government to defend you?
You're thinking about this in the wrong terms. And when I say that I want a world without borders, it means either there would be one world government, or, as Michael also points out, you could have some form of non-government.
Right, but you want a one world government that agrees with you. I'm saying, what if there's a government? Who
doesn't?
I'm saying, what if there is a government that doesn't agree with you, is trying to take you over? Don't you want your government to defend you? Don't you want there to be a wall between the government that you believe is better to defend you against the government that you don't think is good? Don't you want that border?
I think people have to realize and understand from birth on that we have more in common with one another, and we get along and accomplish more by cooperating with one another than by drawing artificial barriers between us.
But you cannot get people to cooperate all the time. You just can't. That's human nature.
Right.
So you have to, at some point, have a border.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. I don't know if that's something that we actually have to do, but it is the way the world works today.
Yes.
And I can't imagine exactly the means by which we get to my utopian vision where we all live happily, holding hands and drinking Coca-Cola together.
Right.
I don't know how we get there from here.
You don't.
But ideally, I would
nature.
prefer for there not to be borders. But anyway, moving on from that.
So,
you can have this one because this is the way the world is right now.
Yes.
So I'm not going to sit here and die on this hill or waste our
conservatives
time
deal in the real world. Liberals deal in the world that they would love to have.
And as
you want to make
Nicole here
rules
points
according
out,
to what you wish could happen.
People would be able to escape the regime if there are no borders, and that's exactly correct. Without borders, people can then move to where they wish to be, where they are safer, where they can make a life.
Yeah, walls are necessary.
Well, yeah, sure they are. In your home, yeah, you need to have your own private space.
Yeah, walls are necessary.
I don't have an issue with that.
Okay,
but
borders are necessary. Perfect.
So where are we at on all this? We've kind of gone a little bit off track.
Well, no, that's kind of it's a great question to start off with.
I agree,
because because it comes down to, is it an unjust law to protect, for a nation to protect its border? Is it unjust to have a system built in place that protects its border? Is that really unjust?
From a philosophical perspective, yes. Nonetheless, we're not arguing from a philosophical perspective. It's not my ideas and my preferences here. So given the fact that we do live in a world with borders where we're divided into nations, then yes, I would have to argue, even though I don't like the position, that nations have a right to control and defend their borders.
So there's nothing unjust about developing a system to keep improper people out while at the same time letting vetted people in.
Yeah, I have again big asterisk because I don't think there should be such things as borders.
But it's not necessarily unjust.
Yes.
Having that system is not by definition unjust. Because you would have to apply. Is it unjust for you to have a lock on your door?
Again, this is false equivalence.
No, it's not.
Your
It is
home
not.
is
It is
different from your nation.
No, it is not. It
a
is
nation
not.
is a concept, while a home is concrete.
Right, but it's still in the concept of can you decide as a society? Can a society, is it just for a society to say there is a door to go through and we can put a lock on that door? Is that just for a society to say this is our border?
Philosophically, no, but literally, again, in reality, this is how it is.
Yeah.
And the answer to that would be yes. So it's this terrible thing where I want to say no to it, but
you intellectually can't. You can't.
It's ridiculous to say no to it.
Yeah, with intellectual honesty, you cannot say no.
It's your fault, Scott.
I know.
But anyway, okay. So given the status quo, given the situation, the realities,
the realities,
we do have a system. There is a door, and there is a lock on the door.
Now there can be different systems, and there can be different ways, and there can be unjust ways of doing that. There can be bad systems
yes,
that need
there
to be
sure can
that,
be.
that can be
and
corrected.
I think we're definitely dealing with myself.
Yeah. Well, I feel we're dealing with a just system that's being overwhelmed.
It certainly is.
And I think the system itself was set up to be just and set up to be the best that it can be, and now it's being overwhelmed. And what can we do? The current answer is not acceptable. Let me just say that right now. That Marshall and I agree that right now this current answer of detaining people in the conditions that they're in is not the acceptable answer for what's happening. But I believe.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have but I believe it was a just system that was set up that is purposely being overwhelmed for the purpose of tearing down the system because there's someone who doesn't want that system there, and I believe that's what's happening.
Now that's interesting that you think that. First of all, from all my research going to CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, and so on, and various other sources, yes, the system is being overwhelmed. Now, you seem to be of the opinion that this is an orchestrated, concerted effort, that it's organized.
I believe there is some organization to it. I believe there is some support that is happening, that moving thousands of people across thousands of miles, keeping them fed, watered, housed, that somebody is supporting that. Somebody is paying for that, and something is making that happen. Now, I don't think that somebody is pulling people out. I don't think somebody's saying, now you're going to go over here and you're going to try to get into. I don't think that's happening. I don't think it's a conspiracy of we're gathering up people and sending them over there. I think there is we're going to encourage people to do that by supporting them flooding the borders of the United States. I believe. I don't know. It's right there in the rules for radicals. Saul Alinsky It's there. So people who don't want the United States to have borders, people who want this one world government, people who want to make this happen, what you are wanting to have happen, people who want to make that happen, I believe, are people who are behind this and are encouraging it and are financing it and are helping it to happen. I believe it is literally an attack on our borders. And those people are using the innocent as pawns to attack the United States.
Okay, so Michael says I'm on step one of Mussolini.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, Mussolini's also a fascist, which is different from a communist, socialist. Fascism is a different breed altogether. Nicole is pointing out the living conditions in other countries versus the idea of the American dream. It's psychological, not a conspiracy. So here's the thing.
Again, the desire to come to the United States is not part of the conspiracy. I believe that there is a desire in people's hearts to come to the United States because they see it as a better country than where they're at. I believe the conspiracy is using that desire and funding it and financing it to get large groups of those people and being able to get to where they couldn't get there before, even though they had the desire. Somebody is funding them and helping them get there with the specific purpose to overwhelm the system so that they can crash the system and build theirs.
Let's talk about what the media, the investigative reporters feel is happening. First of all, there's a sense that the door to the United States is going to close, which makes a rush for the door before closing time. Second of all, you have destabilization in countries, particularly Guatemala, where the United States, again, our Latin American, overseas policy has been simply disastrous for the common people. Time and again, the United States is historically and presently sided with dictatorships and capitalist regimes that will favor American business interests at the expense of the people. That turns those countries literally into hellholes, to use the nice version of the term. And then, of course, the people want to go where the sun is shining and the jobs are flourishing, which is the United States. You have human trafficking and smuggling rings. You have these crime syndicates, these drug cartels.
Who are making money off of getting people
tremendous quantities of
States.
Money. And so they are literally telegraphing to the people, it's now or never. We can still smuggle you in. If you want to go now and bring the whole family, because it's not like, we'll send dad and then a year or two later, mom and the kids, or, dad and then brother and then cousin and then mom and kids come later, which is probably a little bit more traditional, the way in which people come. Or we send dad to go work and he sends money back. And after a few years and we've got enough money to do whatever, dad comes home. And so you have entire families who are now rushing the border because they're afraid the border is going to close in some fashion.
Because they're being lied to.
Yes, the system is being overwhelmed. They're being exploited.
Yep.
And you also have the fact that the United States, by our own foreign policy, is making this whole thing even worse.
So do you think the answer is to reward the exploitation?
I think the answer is for the United States to stop its imperialism in Latin America, first and foremost. Okay. Second of all, for the United States to stop its suspected involvement and collaboration with crime syndicates and drug cartels, which is probably happening, and there is evidence.
Wait, we're supposed to do something about that?
Well, we're supposed to not feed it, but we're feeding it. You have to remember, who do you think these drug cartels are selling the drugs to? They're selling them to Americans. Mm-hmm. And that stuff comes across the border by the truckload. And I find it hard to believe that we can't keep the drugs from being smuggled across the border in the quantities that they're arriving. And somehow American firearms and other stuff are being trafficked back south of the border. There's some sort of an exchange going on. The CIA in particular has been caught doing this in the past. Yep. I can't say that it's happening right now because I don't have the evidence.
By the way, one of those Obama
Fast and Furious
scandals that never never got prosecuted and didn't show up on your little list of
Eric Holder, Fast and Furious.
Yep. But again,
that's on my radar.
That's one of those scandals that never showed up on your little list of Republicans have more scandals than. That one didn't show up.
That was a legit study, though. But we're gonna move past
just
that
throwing
right
that
now.
Past you.
Okay, so again, the United States, I feel, is making the situation worse because of our various policies.
Okay.
The fact that we have a hard time cooperating with Mexico for some reason that's bizarre to me. Historically, the United States and Mexico have not gotten along except for the past 100 years, or really since the 40s. And we do get along now, and now only recently the relationship, particularly under President Trump, appears to be very strained. And I think that has a lot to do with our president. And I think he needs to do some relationship repair, but he also does have to get Mexico to do more to take care of these people in their variety of ways, such as they stay in Mexico until we let them across or what have you. There are all these different possibilities that we can explore, and I think we need to do more collaborating and working together because a lot of these people are not through Mexico.
Yeah, when more of these people are not let into the United States and they're stuck in Mexico, Mexico will realize that's their problem. By they've been openly letting people just kind of pass on through. Well, you're on your way to America, fine, just pass it. Well, no, now you're gonna have to do something about it, and
they're gonna have to act like an ally, and a trading partner, and they're gonna have to be partners in dealing with this situation. But remember, I really think the United States is the chief culprit. We have essentially created the conditions, and we are the ones who have communicated the rhetoric that are being used by the smuggling rings, used by these families, internalized by them, which leads them to, which literally spurs them on.
So you're saying
we've created the problem.
Who's we?
The United States.
What, the individuals?
As a nation, our government in particular, through its policies.
You like to always say the government is all government is a bunch of individuals together. So the drug problem isn't the government. The drug problem is individuals.
Right. I would agree.
Okay. So that's that. So what can the government do? You want a bigger war on drugs to solve that?
Well,
you're saying, how are we letting so much drugs?
Well, for example, drug legalization would simply cause the bottom to fall out of that market. Now that once drugs are legalized and the prices drop, and people can produce their own supplies and consume them in drug legalization has worked spectacularly for curbing drug abuse. all around the world. So that's one possible, but I don't want to get into the details of that today.
And Michael says, I could be wrong, but I don't think many of these immigrants are from Mexico. I think he's probably right. I think most of them are trying to come from Central America through Mexico.
The number one immigrant in the United States seems to be from Asia right now. That's also in the data that I found, which was a surprising fact, because when we think of immigration, we think they're all, Mexicans from Mexico. Absolutely not. Well, it's people from further south.
Then let's correct.
And people from Asia.
Honestly, let's actually correct what he says, because many of these immigrants, they are not immigrants. Immigrants are people who go through the system.
Well, these are asylum seekers in the detention centers.
Right, but they're still not immigrants.
And 2/3 of those asylum requests, by the way, are approved. So there are a lot of people who are fleeing terror, who are fleeing persecution, fleeing danger. Again,
and if they are approved, they should be out of those detention centers.
I agree. And I think that's what happens. The problem is some of the cases can take up to 2 years to process. So
So then we get to the solution side, since we both know that, because what's causing the detention centers and why they're there and why they exist and what's going on with that. We've talked about that. And you feel it's the policy of the United States that's causing this, and there's probably some truth to that of outside, I'm
capitalism.
I'm looking at active, because that's a you could say known side effect, but not. Do you think the intent of what's going on is we want to send people to the United States? We want to flush them out of their country and send them to the United States.
Who? The intent on the part of who?
The whoever the imperialists. Do you think that's
I think the intent is to destroy people and to crush them and oppress them, and so they are coming here because they want some kind of freedom and safety and security.
Okay. So, but do you think the intent is to drive people out of their countries to the United States?
I don't think that there's necessarily a specific intent at play to drive them to the United States. I think what it is there's intent to destroy and control people. And they're naturally fleeing here, right, which the United States has always been. I mean, Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing.
But then you do. I believe there is an outside force that is intending to send people to the border in a direct attack against our border.
So this is more Saul Alinsky coming from you.
Yes.
And by the way, Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, Google it. Read it. It's a really interesting it's like a 10-point list of things that radicals should do to overwhelm and destroy systems against which they are in rebellion, if you will.
So I'm looking at I believe there is an active force of some kind that is intentionally sending these people to the border. We already talked about that. It's whoever it's people who agree with you, who want there to be no borders and want there to be a one world government.
Okay.
That's how you do it. That's how you break down the laws of the United States. That's how you break down the borders of the United States. That's how you break down. It's not your fault. It's people who agree with you. That doesn't mean that people are. I'm not saying people who follow you.
Radicals don't have rules. You're right, Michael. We don't. Go ahead.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Even pirates have rules.
Yeah. Well. Anyway,
it's more of a code, really. But but I'm just saying. So there is an active force trying to tear down the fabric of the United States and using the disenfranchised of other nations to do that. That's what I believe is happening.
I think it's more poetic justice. We're reaping what we're sowing overseas. Is what it is.
That's fine. That can be a karma thing, whatever you want to say. But I'm saying somebody is actively trying to make that happen. Somebody is trying to help karma. Somebody is actively trying to bring that back to the shore of the United States and is trying to do that with the intent of tearing down the laws of the United States and rebuilding it in their image.
Okay.
So as a fan of the United States, I want to find a way to solve this problem.
A fan of the United
States? Yes, absolutely. As are you. Well, you just don't want to be. You're a fan of the benefits. You're a fan of the benefits. You're a fan of the benefits, but want to talk bad about the hand that feeds you. So that's your problem.
There's a lot to talk bad about.
Yeah, that's fine. But you have no problem. You have no problem still reaping the benefits. So
I think the goal should be to change the system, to change the nation to what it should be.
But
what it aspires to
while
be.
You're still benefiting,
I want us to actually
while
get
you're
there.
still benefiting from the evil capitalism, and then while you're still making money off capitalism, you're still fine with that. That's at least I'm honest about being a fan of the United States, and I'm a fan of what's going on.
Well,
and I want to
the
make
wealth
more money,
in this nation.
But we're getting off
is
the
being produced by workers.
Whatever.
And so
we're getting off the
there's
point.
no hypocrisy here.
Yeah, but we're getting off the point of what I'm trying to say is that, which we've gotten off the point, and I've kind of forgotten where I was going with that. But the idea is that as a fan of the United States, I would like to find a solution for this problem that does not violate the principles of there is a just way to maintain a border. Mm-hmm. And the answer is not simply just let everybody in.
What do you recommend? What do you suggest? I have some ideas of my own, but what do you
honestly,
suggest?
Honestly, I feel it seriously is a revolving door. As soon as they're caught coming from Mexico into the United States, they're just shoved right back to Mexico.
What if a person says, though, because again, a lot of the people in the detention centers are coming through the door. They just are not coming through, having knocked first, but they are coming through.
Then they're not coming through the door.
Well, they're coming through ports of entry. In fact, the Border Patrol reports in one of these articles there are entire busloads of immigrants who are looking for immigration and customs officials to surrender to so they can request asylum.
Okay, and that's fine. Then they got to be processed, but then they can't come into the United States.
Okay, so where do they go? Because
right now the
asylum law says they have to be on U.S. soil to request asylum.
Okay, well then you have to wait in line to get on U.S. soil to request asylum. It's that simple. There's a line outside. Here's our border. Once you get in, you request asylum. We're processed. Okay, cool. We're going to do this. It's just a really long line. Sorry about that, but I'm not going to detain you. You just have to wait in line. Or honestly, here's the thing. As bad as these detention centers are, please don't take this as a justifiable that it's okay to treat people this way. As bad as the detention centers are, in most cases, they are still better than where the people are coming from. No, but I would not force somebody to be in there. I don't want to. Have you been to Mexico? Have you been on vacation? Not on vacation. Have you been to?
No, I've been on vacation.
Have you been into real Mexico?
Yes, I have. And what I have seen in real Mexico through travels and not quite vacation is pretty, kind of scary at times.
Have you been in people's homes? Have you been into a home
but not necessarily one that was dilapidated or
No, I'm saying, have you been into a home that was pallets and cardboard?
No, I have not.
I have.
Okay.
That's where they're living. Their children don't have shoes. That is life for them. That is how it is. And they're trying to escape that. They're trying to get away from that, make a better life. I would say, here's the line, wait in line, or this is the only facility we have. We're trying to build, I think we should be building more. I think we should be building better, but you cannot have a holding facility with minors and adults together. In open population, you just can't do that, have open population. There has to be, is this minor is with this adult? How do we know that? Is that actually their child? Would you want a minor being housed with an adult that you don't know is their parent or is their relative? Or how do you know if you're the person if you're the person who has this place, I have a place to house. Forget that it's immigration, whatever. Let's just say here right now, there's a homeless people. Okay, I have this small little tiny house that you can go into and live. Okay, here's this minor child and this adult. Will you just put them in there without investigating what the relationship is?
It would depend.
Would you just put a minor with an adult into a secured place?
Ceteris paribus, all things being equal, the answer would be no.
Right.
Because I would
have to
ensure
vet
the safety. Right.
You would have to vet that.
But the vetting could be as simple as, is this your parent? You may question
Yes,
people.
Exactly. And that's fine.
And there are ways that you can simply question
and there
people,
should be ways that we can do that. I'm just saying, all things being equal, would you just house minors with adults without vetting?
No.
Would that be responsible?
No.
Okay. No.
And I'm not saying we can't vet people.
Right. And I understand. Okay. I'm not saying that you're saying we can't vet people. I'm just trying to reduce this discussion down to its basic. Let me put that back on live. Back down to the basic ideas. So here it is. Let's try to build facilities that can house families together. I have no problem with that. Start investing in that and start building
good.
that. Let's start doing that.
Step.
Let's start doing this because we're being overwhelmed and the system cannot handle it.
And you create mini houses.
Yeah, mini houses and everything, and a way to vet. Let's get more people in there. Let's get more staff in there to do. But let's do it at the border. When somebody comes in not through that door, they are just bust back to that side of the border over there is a line. Now you have to wait outside this line before we let you into the United States. You cannot come in. We're going to vet let me finish this. We're going to vet whether or not your asylum, and this might take days, it might take months, it might take years. We got to find out if your asylum, maybe there's a reasonable way where it can take weeks. I don't know.
But then you're going to end up funneling people illegally across the border, which then they don't come into the system at all. That's where all the trafficking is
soon as they're
place.
caught, they're sent back. Don't detain them. Don't just
But we're
send
not
them back.
catching them.
That's why we need a freaking wall. Thank you, advocate for a wall. So we find a way to detain. We find a way to detain them and release them. Get them back. Don't hold them. Get them back over there. Here's this line, and then you have the option. Like, I really am fearful for my life. If I stay in this country, I could die. If I can't get into the United States, there are people who are looking for me, and I seriously have a threat against my life. Okay. We can't let you in until we vet you. You can either stay here or you can voluntarily stay in the facilities that we have.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but those facilities should conform to basic standards.
And they do, unless they're being overwhelmed. They're being overwhelmed right now.
We have to expand
Send them back. Thank you.
We have to expand them.
Right, and as long as and until we do that, they have to be sent back.
Because the whole send back thing, we did that during World War II. Prior to World War II, in fact, there were entire boatloads of Jewish people literally fleeing literal real-time persecution.
Yeah. And
we had literally turned ships back, and the people on board those ships that were turned back from the United States ended up dying in concentration camps.
And that's why you say you can go back or you can live in this facility. Your choice. We're not going to detain you.
So you're going to let
facility
them in
if they want. And be in that facility until they're processed. And
you're okay with expanding the facility to accommodate them.
As fast as we can, yes. But until I say we say this is the capacity. The problem we're having right now is that it's over capacity because it wasn't built for the number of people, but we're still filling it up. Stop filling it up, send them back. This is our capacity. Right now, we don't have any space. We just can't do it until we can process these people.
But international law requires, plus decency and human rights requires that we accept asylum seekers.
We are accepting asylum seekers, and we're trying to reprocess. But the facilities do not exist, so we just can't take that. So the line is out the door. There you go. The line is out the door.
We agree to that. We have to expand these facilities because let me tell you, if the line gets too long, then people are going to go around.
Right. So, but that again, if the lock is too strong, they're going to break in through your window. It still doesn't give them the right to come in.
Right, but once they go around, because
now you're justifying criminal activity.
The goal for both of us should be to end that end run.
Yes.
Put a stop to that, whether it's through a wall or whatever. We don't want people doing that. We agree, right? So I think the humanitarian way to resolve that dispute is simply to rapidly expand the facilities, ensure that the facilities conform to a standard of basic human decency, that people can stay there as long as it takes to process the request, but you accelerate or you
But
you,
I
you
also
need
say,
more judges
I also say you give them the choice.
adjudicate.
I also say you give them the choice.
They've made the choice. At what point they cross, 1,500 miles across Mexico, they've made the choice.
Right.
They're not going to say, okay, I'm going to go back. No, they're coming in.
Okay, but then they're coming into the facilities that we have.
Okay, but we need to expand the facilities.
Yes.
But I think we agree.
Yes, expand the facilities. That's
Nobody
fine.
agrees with keeping people, kids sleeping on concrete floors.
Expand
Nobody
the facilities, but once you hit the limit of whatever you have to stop. You have to send people back. I know you're trying to seek asylum. I'm sorry. The facility, we're trying to expand the facilities. There's just not enough space. We're not going to overpopulate the facilities. We're going to try to build more and do this, but we're not going to overpopulate and cram you into and concentrate you into a camp.
How about we change our foreign policy? How about we just dial back the capitalism from 11 to something more reasonable, like a 5 or a 6 even? How about we dial some of that back? How about we dial back some of our collaboration with some of these, organized crime groups south of the border, these drug cartels. Remember, the United States built Pablo Escobar, Colombian drug lord, and the United States we're all aware of Fast and Furious. We're also aware of the Iran-Contra affair. We're aware of the United States and its history with people like Manuel Noriega. We're aware of the United States with, United Fruit Company, the whole banana thing and the banana wars and all of this stuff.
It's got to turn into the avocado wars pretty soon.
Right. So we have this long tradition of turning Latin America into a hellhole for the people who live there. How about we dial some of that back?
That's fine. I don't care.
Even though that steps on the foot of capitalism, there's not going to be so much free enterprise.
I don't mind if prices go up. They should be.
Good. I agree. If that's what it takes, that people can have a decent standard of living,
I don't mind that
I'm all in
things
favor.
cost
Welcome
what
to the
they're
revolution,
supposed. That things
comrade.
cost what they're supposed to cost. I don't mind that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. That's why I never use the argument. You'll notice this, that I don't ever use the argument of, well, do you know how much that will cost? I don't. Have you seen me use that argument?
Yeah. No, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, because that's not, to me, I'm like,
the whole cost thing's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We have money to go to war with Iran and then stop 10 minutes before we drop the first bomb. I think we have money to expand a detention center with a few hundred tents if need be, or mini homes or whatever.
Yeah.
I bet you, in fact, the money spent on Trump's aborted airstrikes of Iran could easily build a whole new detention center capable of housing people in actual conditions, because remember, this is also civil detainment. It's not criminal detainment.
Yeah.
And that's another distinction that I came across in my research. Was like, well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know, these people are not necessarily criminals, even though they did technically break a law. If you are an asylum seeker, you are not a criminal. You have not broken a law to get here.
I'm also of the belief that there is a proper way to seek asylum, and if you're not doing that, you should be sent back and then seek asylum the proper way.
Well, the problem is,
otherwise you
if
are
your
breaking
life
the law.
is in danger and you're fleeing, you're not concerned with what's proper. You're simply concerned with securing your safety.
Right. So you wouldn't mind living in a detention center.
Exactly. I would prefer that to actual death from a death squad.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, it doesn't justify the deplorable conditions in which we put these people and their children in detention centers. Losing kids, breaking up families. Come on, guys.
Yep.
As a nation, we aspire to something greater.
But what I want to make sure is that there should be a way to defend against this attack against our nation.
Oh, it's not an attack. That's hyperbole.
No.
Because you're doing
I'm
hyperbole.
I'm not saying these people are attacking. I believe there is a concerted effort to attack our nation, not by these people. They're using these people. I did not say that these people are attacking our nation.
Okay, I want to be clear with that.
No, these people are not attacking our nation. People trying to get in for us. I do not believe that those individuals are trying to attack our nation. I do believe there is a concerted effort by a group of people who are trying to use these people to attack the foundations of our nation to break it down. So I believe that this is an attack upon our nation, not by the people who are fleeing their countries, not by those people at all. But I believe this is I believe there needs to be a way to defend against this attack without destroying the just laws of protecting a border, and not rewarding the exploitation of these people, but do it in. That's what I'm talking about. So simply just releasing people into the United States, I do not believe is the answer, because that rewards the exploitation and it destroys the American border and ultimately, brings down the United States because then the laws don't mean anything. So that's what I'm talking about. So good call on that. But I don't believe the majority of the people seeking asylum are doing it nefariously or doing it maliciously or trying to attack the United States. They want to get someplace better. They are being used and exploited by a power that wants to eliminate the United States.
And it could be that the United States is feeding that power, or the United States itself is that power. We've certainly, again, created the climate. We've created the rhetoric. We've telegraphed the border may close. We've created the conditions in which this spike in immigration has occurred.
And even the rhetoric of our president.
Yes.
It's like somebody saying, here's what our company's going to do, and the stock plummets, or that stock plummets because somebody says something and everybody panics.
Right.
Yeah.
And there is some degree of that.
There are more guns sold when there's a Democratic president than when there's a Republican president, because all the gun people are afraid that their guns are going to get taken away. Yeah.
So Carrie points out, she says she wants to protect the borders, but like this. And I'm not sure what she means.
I'm assuming that's a question. I want to protect the borders, but like this. I'm hoping that's what it means. I think. I'm not real sure.
All right. Well, I want to give her a shout out. And Scott had a number of comments.
You want to call him Gaff, or you want to call him Garcia? What do you want? Because he's all call us by our last. Yeah, call him by
Gaff. Hey, Gaff.
Call him by our last names, because he's like he didn't know which Scott was you were referring to.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everybody, for participating again in this conversation. I believe we were able to maintain an intellectually honest conversation.
Well, we sparred. You're like, well, why don't you leave if you don't like it? And I'm like, oh, really? That may have to be a topic for another show.
Yeah.
I'll have to think on that.
Did we spar on that on the air?
We haven't done that. Like, if you
I'm
don't
all,
like
did we
America,
say
why
that
don't
right
you
now
leave?
on the air? I can't remember.
Well, we
I was
talked
getting
about,
confused.
I pointed out too, but I think that was part of our pre-show discussion, was a lot of these people who are trying to immigrate to the United States are literally taking your advice. They don't like it where they are, so they're leaving and coming here, So
welcome.
Anyway.
Honestly,
Yeah.
that's why I wish more. I believe, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I believe more people on the conservative side do want immigrants. They have no problem with people coming and immigrating into the United States. Mm-hmm. Just do it the right way.
I think our politicians are,
and by standing against illegal immigration, it sounds like we're standing against immigration.
Right. Well, I think our politicians like the issue because they get a lot of political mileage out of it. Because here's the bottom line, Scott. You and I sat here for 45 minutes. We've basically come up with the broad strokes of a solution to the immigration problem. Why can't our professional politicians who've been wrangling over this for as long as I can remember, going back more than 40 years, why can't they work out a solution? And the answer is because they don't want to. And that goes for both Republicans and Democrats.
But at the same time, I also believe that it's also because of basic corruption in there. What games do you have to play to get that detention center built? Because this politician it's being built on this property, and which company are you going to hire? That becomes just a horrible.
Yeah,
horrible
and that's
thing,
standing in the way of taking care of human needs and basic human decency, civility, human rights, and so on. Yeah.
Well, if you can believe it, it's been 46 minutes. This has been a valid answer with Scott and Marshall, where we talked about a fiery topic and maintain civility in it by maintaining intellectual honesty.
There you go.
We did it. You can catch us here Sundays at 5, Mondays at 4. Until next time, I'm Scott.
And I'm Marshall.
All right, we'll catch you in the future.
Thank you.